Dallas Mavericks, already playing with house money, look to take a 2-0 series lead after stealing home court advantage away from the Los Angeles Clippers in Game 1. This is the Gray Area right here on Kevin Gray Sports. My name is Kevin Gray. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to hit that subscribe button right there for all things Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. And you can catch me on your home of the Dallas Cowboys and Texas Rangers, 105.3 The Fan. The Dallas Mavericks look to take a 2-0 series lead tonight as they take on the Los Angeles Clippers after getting a 10-point win in Game 1. Luka Doncic had his third career playoff triple-double with 31 points, 10 rebounds, and 11 assists, and got some help from his running mates, namely Dorian Finney-Smith and Tim Hardaway Jr. Dorian Finney-Smith, a playoff career-high 18 points, including the go-ahead three-pointer with 2:50 left in the fourth quarter that started a 13-3 run that sealed things for the Mavericks. Meanwhile, Tim Hardaway Jr., 21 points on 8 of 13 from the field, 5 of 9 from downtown. He was absolutely spectacular, being another helping hand against a Clippers team that's extremely deep and talented. Defensively, the Mavericks got after the Clippers, the number one three-point shooting team in all of the NBA, holding them to just 27% from downtown in game number 1. As you remember, the Clippers are the number one three-point shooting team in all of the NBA, shooting over 41% from the field from downtown this year. But this game is going to hinge on a particular matchup that Ty Lue has already made known will happen more so in Game 2. After Doncic cooked your man Ivica Zubac for 16 of his 31 points on the switches that they decided to run against Doncic. And then, yes, I know the Clippers held to Luka Doncic to just 1 point in the fourth quarter, but the amount of plays that he made to his teammates in punishing the traps and the double teams that they sent to him in the fourth quarter with guys like Jalen Brunson, who had 9 huge points in the fourth quarter. There's not much you can do with the guy who's most likely going to be a first-team All-NBA selection for a second year in a row. But Ty Lue says you're going to get a healthy dose of your man Kawhi Leonard against Luka Doncic, which is going to be interesting because Leonard is already the number one scorer on this team and your primary offensive weapon. Now you're going to have sending him chasing around Luka Doncic all night. Dealing with the strength and the creativity and the vision of Doncic is going to be a tall order for a former Defensive Player of the Year in Kawhi Leonard. But if anyone is up to the task, it could be Leonard in this particular game. You saw how Doncic was able to abuse smaller guys, hello Patrick Beverley, in the lane, and then also make Ivica Zubac barbecue chicken all night long also by punishing him on switches. There's not much you can do with Doncic, who's a 3-level scorer now with his ability to obviously get to the cup. He's a mid-range scorer now with the Dirk one-legged fadeaways, and also a guy who is an improved three-point shooter. So when you're talking about a multi-level scorer with a bag of tricks in his game, and now you're putting your primary defender on Doncic, I'm not sure what you can do, especially if your man Kristaps Porzingis shows up in this particular game, where, of course, he only went 4 of 13 from the field. He scored his first 5 points on a couple of plays that were screened for him at the beginning of the first quarter, but after that, really kind of disappeared. He reappeared in the fourth quarter with a nice dunk over Kawhi Leonard and had a couple of free throws late to help seal things for the Mavericks. But the most efficient pick-and-roll duo in all of the NBA is going to have to be on display in this game between Doncic and Porzingis to give the Mavericks much more confidence offensively that Porzingis' head is where it needs to be and not being mentally taken out of plays due to the physicality of guys like Paul George and Marcus Morris and Kawhi Leonard, who at times will be on Kristaps Porzingis. But this is going to come down to Luka Doncic continuing to make the kinds of adjustments that we've seen him do throughout his young career, and this time do it against the Los Angeles Clippers. Maxi Kleber, who did play in game number 1 and got posterized by Kawhi Leonard, is listed as questionable going into game number 2. For Maxi Kleber, though, the mentality stays the same as the Mavericks look to stay greedy and try and get the second game in Los Angeles. Here's Maxi Kleber talking about the mentality that the Mavericks will need to have in order to try and take game number 2.
We expect them to come out even more physical, so we got to be prepared for that and fight back, not back down. I think we should be very confident in the way we play and just approach that and go and keep fighting and competing. I think the mindset should be the same. Attack on offense and on defense, like just stay strong, because we know they're going to play physical and they're going to have all those antics and stuff. But we focus on us, play our game, and come out and play with the right way.
So Maxi Kleber says, look, the mentality remains the same. We need to meet in attack mode from the jump and be able to take it to the Los Angeles Clippers, because we know that they're going to make their run. The Mavericks had 5 guys in double figures, including Dorian Finney-Smith, obviously Porzingis with his 14 points, Doncic, who had 31, Tim Hardaway Jr. with the 21 points that he had, and 9 of Jalen Brunson's 15 points came in the fourth quarter for a team that shot over 47% from the three-point line and shot 50% from the field in this game. They also out-rebounded the Clippers in Game 1. Much of that is going to have to remain the same going into Game 2. The physicality that Ivica Zubac provides as an offensive rebounder is going to be crucial for the Clippers to be able to create second possessions in this game, while being able to get guys like Paul George into better offensive flow, where he was just 1 of 7 in the first half against the Dallas Mavericks. And give the Dallas Mavericks credit. They have played well defensively against Paul George, whether it be on heavily contested shots or lightly contested shots. Paul George has fits against this Mavericks team. While Mavericks fans hope that Paul George continues to struggle, there will be times when George plays well in this series. Hopefully for the Mavericks defensively, they're able to contain him, given how he can potentially go off in games, especially as a guy who shot over 40% from the three-point line. But this is going to come down to a couple of things. I've mentioned him a couple of times already. Jalen Brunson being an X factor in this series alongside guys like Tim Hardaway Jr. and Dorian Finney-Smith. Here is Jalen Brunson talking about the idea of how they were able to close with the kind of poise that they did in game number 1 and why it's going to be important in game number 2. Here's what Jalen Brunson had to say.
Hey, JB, this team has played really well in the clutch, and that came out again in game 1 with that 13-3 run to end the game. What have you noticed about how this team has matured in those moments to give you confidence that in a playoff game you can execute the way that you did down the stretch there?
I think it's just how we've been able to grow as a team. I remember my second year, even the first year, we lost a lot of close games, and it was because of our inexperience. And then kept getting older, kept getting wiser, just getting better, more together. And so it just translates to how we've been able to grow over these last couple of years, and so how confident we are with each other.
So Jalen Brunson liking the way that the Mavericks finished with poise in the fourth quarter, and a lot of that was due to him and the couple of and-ones that he had in the fourth quarter. And then guys like Tim Hardaway Jr., who had a terrific sequence by drawing a charge and then hitting a three-pointer that gave him a 198 lead before ultimately the Mavericks got that 13-3 run to end the game. Tim Hardaway Jr., Dorian Finney-Smith, Jalen Brunson are going to be X factors in Game 2 to continue to provide the kind of bench scoring that they will need to supplement Luka Doncic and hopefully a better offensive Kristaps Porzingis in Game 2, because that is going to be key in this game. Porzingis' ability to be the unicorn and be able to stretch the floor from the three-point line, his ability to stay locked in on the defensive end, where at times Doncic and Leonard attacked him as far as getting into the paint is concerned. But more importantly for the Mavericks, continuing to play with the kind of intensity that you did in the first quarter. You're 28-0 this season when leading after the first quarter. You jumped out to a 17-6 run to start off the first quarter and set the tone early about what this game is going to be. You're not afraid of the Clippers. And if you could come out with that same mentality in Game 2 tonight, you're going to put yourself in a really good position to be able to take a second game in Los Angeles. But more so than anything, the Mavericks are going to have to withstand the early punch that I think the Clippers are going to come out with, because this is a proud team who has a lot of pride and more so than anything has a lot of pressure on them coming into this postseason where it's really championship or bust. So all the pressure is squarely on the Clippers to handle their business to get a split in these first 2 games, because if they don't, they're coming back to a Dallas crowd at the American Airlines Center on Friday and Sunday that's going to be at near capacity and is going to be rocking. And I don't think the Clippers would want to come back down 0-2 to Dallas knowing that Luka Doncic is going to have an opportunity to play in front of a near full capacity crowd for the first time all season. That ain't it. So for the Clippers, they're going to come out, I think, with a much more sense of urgency in game 2 to start off with and try to match the intensity that the Mavericks will need to come out with. Josh Richardson and others will need to be ready and stay ready to be able to be a contributing factor in this game. But more so than anything, the role players will need to continue to step up in this game too to help Luka Doncic and, more importantly, Kristaps Porzingis get off to a fast start. A fast start will put pressure on this Clippers team and make them be the ones to react to try and get themselves back into the series. But the way that the Mavericks closed in game number 1 with that 13-3 run, some of the defensive plays that you saw from Tim Hardaway Jr., the composure of a Jalen Brunson, and the knockdown three-point clutch shots that you saw from Dorian Finney-Smith, coupled with, obviously, a virtuoso performance from Luka Doncic. If you get something similar to that in game 2, the way that you attacked the Clippers in game 1, we might be talking about the Mavericks walking out of Los Angeles with a 2-0 lead. Let the games begin. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to hit that subscribe button right there for all things Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. This has been another episode of The Gray Area. We'll talk to you later. Peace.